the super PACs supporting you to stand down?
So look, the first day I got in this race over a year ago, I said, I hope every presidential candidate who comes in will agree. No super PACs for any of us. I renewed that call dozens of times, and I couldn't get a single Democrat to go along with me. Finally, we reached the point a few weeks ago where all of the men who are still in this race and on the debate stage all had either super PACs or they were multi-billionaires and could just, rummage around in their sock drawers and find enough money to be able to fund a campaign. And the only people who didn't have them were the two women. And at that point, there are some women around the country who said, that's just not right. So here's where I stand. If all the candidates want to get rid of super PACs, count me in. I'll lead the charge. But that's how it has to be. It can't be the case that a bunch of people keep them and only one or two don't.
This is Warren trying to justify, after spending, a year ragging on the notion of super PACs, getting into the race, saying she would never back a super PAC, she doesn't want the dark money. Now, here's the catch. This goes into Warren's dishonesty. Basically, Warren dumped like $11 million from her Senate race, a race full of dark money where she took money from any source, and put that into her presidential campaign in order to pad her presidential campaign. Super Tuesday. Warren is broke. She was burning through her money. Her support plummeted after people realized that she wasn't actually for Medicare for all. She was basically for Pete's plan. She just didn't want to call it Pete's plan. She preferred to call it Medicare for all. But that became very, very clear when people started asking her questions about the specifics of her plan and how she was going to pay for her plan. And the moment that she pulled out her plan, people realized this is just Pete's plan with a hope that at some point, when you are likely to be weaker politically, to try to implement Medicare for all. People realized it was a canard. It was full of it. In this very specific case, Elizabeth Warren, who grifted from votes, support, and money from the left, and many of the people who backed her thought she was running with Sanders because they consider her a lefty. That lefty turns around, and after taking all of that money from all of those people for saying, I'm not going to accept super PACs, I'm for Medicare for all, I'm for some kind of Green New Deal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, she turns around and attacks the person who the left chooses, Sanders. Relentlessly attacks the person that the left chooses, even when she gets out the race. But more important is this. This is Warren, who is broke, stays in the race for Super Tuesday, uses super PAC in order to keep her in that race while she continues to undercut Sanders, guts his vote total, splits the vote total, allowing Joe Biden to basically take 3 more states or 4 more states than he would have taken on Super Tuesday. My point here is Elizabeth Warren is a political actor, not an ideological actor. She takes positions and actions based on what is in her political best interests, not based on ideological positioning. The catch becomes, I've argued that Warren was never for Medicare for all, that it was very clear that Warren wasn't for Medicare for all because whatever she was saying on the debate stage, the moment that she got on the campaign trail, it was something different. She wasn't talking about it like it was Medicare for all. She was talking about it like it was something else. Well, at this point, the optics have even gone away. Elizabeth Warren is now trying to become the VP choice. Now, you can make a case. I think you can make a pretty decent case. Elizabeth Warren was working with Hillary Clinton going back to 2013. And even before Sanders asked her to run in that race, Elizabeth Warren had made a deal with the other women in the Senate that they would back and give their fealty and allegiance to one Hillary Clinton. On top of that, in 2020, that relationship was still there, with reporting showing that Warren was trying to keep that relationship hidden and a secret, but they were working behind the scenes together. Now, the catch becomes Hillary Clinton hated Sanders. So the person who was supposed to be a lefty was basically working and colluding with somebody who basically hated the person that the left chose. If indeed Hillary Clinton hated Sanders, and Hillary Clinton, whose husband told Tom Perez to not let Bernie Sanders and his folks take the party, is it possible that the whole Stop Sanders thing also included one Elizabeth Warren? I would make the point of saying yes, especially since now Warren is repudiating Medicare for all in order to get a VP spot. I love it. I love it. Lack of integrity. And I've said it before, integrity is expensive. This is despite 88% of Democrats being for Medicare for all and 70% of everybody else being for Medicare for all. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, like, share, subscribe. You can always support this content, PayPal, Patreon. This content is in real terms brought to you by you, and I appreciate you guys for allowing me to do this show. Look, I'm not going to keep this long. Elizabeth Warren, to me, is a snake. Elizabeth Warren couldn't be trusted after 2016. I haven't the slightest idea why after 2016, any lefty, any person that was supporting lefty and progressive policy backed Warren as opposed to Sanders, but nevertheless, here we are. Many of those people were conned, many of those people were shocked, including one Bernie Sanders who walked outside in the chill wind looking at the moon, wondering, maybe she's not as progressive as I thought. No shit, Sherlock. Maybe you're more naive than I thought. That seems to be what's more likely to be true. The woman attacks you relentlessly the entire time you're in the race. And on top of attacking you, especially towards the end, and especially when she got out the race, but on top of attacking you, basically giving Joe Biden somewhat of a pass. It seems as if the fix was in. You have all of these Stop Sanders meetings, and for the life of me, I don't know why people thought Elizabeth Warren wasn't part of the Stop Sanders coalition, especially now that she is basically trying to ingratiate herself to Joe Biden for the VP pick. I would just make the very basic point that the ingratiation didn't start now. It started all the way back when she was splitting the vote, destroying any notion of integrity in order to undercut the left. Do you remember when Warren said this?
We're building on the Affordable Care Act. You know, Democrats are not going to win by repeating Republican talking points and by dusting off the points of view of the giant insurance companies and the giant drug companies who don't want to see any change in the law that will bite into their profits. But if anyone wants to defend keeping those high profits for insurance companies and those high profits for drug companies and not making the top 1% pay a fair share in taxes and not making corporations pay a fair share in taxes, then I think they're running in the wrong presidential primary.
Well, you are also, right now, trying to keep those profits for those insurance companies. You're backing the guy who's basically going to keep those profits for the insurance companies. And you are ditching your Medicare for all policy that wasn't Medicare for all in the first place, but at the very least you had a moniker or the name of it. But now you are ditching that, backing one Joe Biden who in no way supports Medicare for all. That speech where you basically said, yeah, these guys are running in the wrong primary if you want to maintain profits for the 1% in insurance companies. How quickly they change when the VP spot is on the line. She should have put a little disclaimer at the bottom and says, unless the vice presidential spot is on the line, then fuck it. That's what she should have put. Unless the VP spot is on the line, and then fuck it. So this is Politico. So right here. I think right now, this is Warren. I think right now people want to see improvements in our healthcare system, and that means strengthening the Affordable Care Act, she told students at the University of Chicago Institute of Politics this week, while adding that she still wants to get single payer eventually. Every Democrat that you've ever come across has basically said single payer eventually. At some point, we're going to get the Affordable Care Act, and then we're going to build on that for the single payer. But what did they say after they got the Affordable Care Act? Well, I mean, we can't make the changes now. I mean, we just got the Affordable Care Act. No, the policy that you should be pushing is the policy that has 88% Democratic support, that has 70% Democratic support. You've had 33 million people, nearly 40 million people, 38 million people that lost their jobs. You have nearly 40 million people that don't necessarily have health care or they're expecting not to have health care. You have 800,000 people who they're expecting to literally be homeless as they start kicking people out of their houses for not being able to pay rent, seeing as all of those people have lost their jobs. Many of the people who were supposed to be getting unemployment didn't get unemployment because the systems in the various places were so decrepit. In a situation where you're in the middle of a healthcare crisis and a pandemic, you're backing somebody who is basically fighting for insurance companies. Just saying. If you can't push and get Medicare for all now, I don't know how you would ever get it. Seeing as you're in the middle of a pandemic where the people who want Medicare for all skyrocketed over the course of the last several months, seeing that people realize that the notion of having health care associated with your job is just fucking ridiculous. You are out of sync with the public. And in the same way you're arguing that Joe Biden was basically running for insurance companies at this point, so are you. So are you. This shift is the latest public signal that Warren has sent in Biden's way in recent weeks that she wants the job of vice president and wants Joe Biden to see her as a loyal governing partner despite their past clashes. Warren's quote-unquote policy-centered team player pitch is counting on Joe Biden caring more about January 20th than November 3rd. Now, what they're arguing basically is, look, I'm the person that is great on policy. And because I'm the person that's great on policy, even though you may not necessarily get a big political bump from choosing me, from a standpoint of getting policy accomplished and the person who's good at that, I'm your person. You could say that Sanders is also backing Biden, but what you can't say is Sanders ditched Medicare for all. Warren did. Like, share, and of course, subscribe.